Welcome to Patty's Place, a place where we'll talk about grief, dementia, and caregiving. I started this podcast in honor of my mom, Pat, who passed away from dementia about 2.5 years ago. I'm your host, Lisa. So this is a place where you'll know that you're not alone. We can talk about all these things that are really hard to talk about at times. So grab your cup of tea, your cup of coffee. If you're having a really bad day, maybe a glass of wine. And we are going to get started today. Today, I'm really excited. We have Dr. Elizabeth Scott here. She's a psychologist, and her latest book chronicles her journey from near terror to near acceptance of her mortality. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So your book is entitled, You're Going to Die, But Not Me.
That's correct.
I like that title. I like it. So what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, really. Well, I mean, the very quick answer is that I'm quite old. So that's the very quick answer. But
Okay.
the slightly longer answer is that I was diagnosed in 2014 with breast cancer.
Oh, okay.
So that was what 12 years ago. That would
Yes.
have made me 67. And I did not handle that well at
Okay.
all.
Okay.
I was a big baby about it.
Well, it's
And
understandable.
yeah, it is. I give myself some grace because I know it's a very hard thing to go through. The backstory on this, though, is that I had quite a difficult mother, and my sister and I had a lot of trepidation about what it was going to be like as she approached the end of her life, and because she was very demanding and self-centered. And the very strange irony is that she died with a lot of grace and peace and ease, and it made the whole experience so much easier for my sister and me. So when I look back on my own experience going through my breast cancer diagnosis, and I'm fine now, by the way, everything is
Oh, well,
fine.
good.
Yeah, thank you. I realized it was a gift to my sister and me to have my mother approach her death in the way she did, and I didn't want my own children to be burdened by the experience of my death being, if I was going to go kicking and screaming and a lot of, angst about it. I thought that would be a real burden for them. So that got me on a path of wanting to feel a little bit more ease and acceptance about my mortality. That's where it started.
Okay. Which I can understand that because, yeah, when you are going through things like that, it makes you really start to think about all of that.
It sure
With
does.
it. So how did your feelings about death change?
Well, this was I dug in, and I love research. I'm kind of a research buff. Anytime my kids they need a new rice cooker or something like that, I'm on it. Like, what's the best rice cooker? So I went down every single rabbit. So I decided to write a book about it because I'm a writer also.
Okay.
And so I went down every single solitary rabbit hole I could find on the subject of death. And I don't know how familiar you are with the concept of, or the methodology of exposure therapy. This is something that we psychologists use often with people who have difficult experiences related to experiences or memories or feelings. So this became a kind of course of exposure therapy for me as I went down all these different rabbit holes on the subject of death and mortality. So that's the kind of shorthand, I think, the kind of quick answer to what happened for me. There were different subjects that gave me more of a modicum of peace around it. Different. Some things made me more frightened. Other things made me less frightened.
I can understand that because, a lot of people, they get scared of even the topic of death or illness. They don't want to deal with it. But in a weird sort of way, when you confront that or you face it and try to deal with whether it's your illness or a family member's illness, it almost does bring you peace and makes you realize how you need to live in the present.
Yeah, there's another really important basic kind of psychological approach that I've used with my clients. I've been a psychologist for almost 50 years. And one thing I know is true is that when we avoid things that are frightening and create anxiety for us, it only increases the fear and anxiety when we avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And the antidote to that is approach, is to, put on your big girl pants, be brave, and find a safe way to approach whatever is frightening you. So that's a kind of general theory. It kind of goes along with what you're saying, for sure.
And I'm kind of like you too. Like when with my mom, like I noticed she was not herself for quite a while before she was actually diagnosed.
Oh,
But when she finally was, I kind of was like, okay, I need to learn about this and how can I deal with it. Some things work, some things didn't, and then to learn more about it, because I always feel like if I can understand it, then I can get closer to accepting it because I understand what I'm dealing with.
I think that's so true. And it would be understandable going through something as difficult as a parent developing dementia. It's almost counterintuitive to think about, well, I'm just going to, immerse myself in this subject because it's something that's so difficult. The natural instinct is to want to just kind of block it out and not think about
Mm-hmm.
it. So, good for you for doing that. It takes courage.
Well, thank you for saying that, but, and for me, it was like, I just trying to figure out how do I deal with all this, same thing, like, as you said, when you got your diagnosis, okay, well, what am
Yeah.
I dealing with? Because it's so
Yep.
overwhelming,
Yep.
whatever the illness is, trying to
Hmm.
understand it, and then doctors and hospitals and with all of that. So when you were writing this book, what was the most surprising thing that you found?
Yeah, there were so many surprising things, so many surprising things. So, I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of panpsychism.
No, I don't think I have.
Okay.
Okay.
So, when I first came across, so the sort of very basic way of understanding panpsychism is that everything in the universe has consciousness, everything.
Okay.
So it was very easy for me to believe that my dog and my cat have some kind of consciousness,
Okay. Well, I would agree with that.
Yeah, right. And so, but I read like this amazing book about plants. There are plants that have just this amazing ability. Some plants to kind of ward off insects or create toxins so that they don't get so predators don't attack them. There
Okay.
are like whales can communicate with other whales 300 miles away. Trees can communicate with each other through their roots. And even so, plants and animals, that's one step in this panpsychism, but
Mhm.
even things like mountains and the ocean and dirt, if you start thinking about everything in the universe, every single solitary thing in the universe has some kind of consciousness, not in the way we humans would think about it,
Mhm.
but in this very broad sense. What happened for me was this kind of sense of I'm me and this body are a collection of molecules that are part of just the whole universe of molecules.
Okay.
Just the whole. It's just one big giant web of consciousness, and it was surprising and strangely comforting.
I could understand that. I could see where that would be
Yeah,
comforting.
it's
Uh,
kind of far out notion, I know.
but I could understand that, especially like even if you just take it as, I always felt like all of my dogs had their soul. Like I feel like
Totally.
I
Don't you just know it? They're dogs. Oh my gosh,
yeah, I was like,
totally.
and I feel like that. I know some people don't agree with that, but I do.
I do too. I do too. I know my dog's going to start talking to me one of these days too. I don't know about you've ever
Well,
felt that
exactly.
way,
And
but
I feel like they do. Like they look
yeah,
at you and they're like, "What are you
yeah,
doing?"
they
Yeah.
do it right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I ended up taking care of my mom's dog because she had to go to
Oh,
memory care, and she was this little
oh,
14-pound terrier, and she had such an attitude.
oh.
And I would sit out on my patio, and she would only want to be out for a little bit, and then she'd go in, and then I'd be sitting there talking with my neighbors and stuff, and I'd look, and she'd be at the patio door just looking at me like, "Aren't you done yet?"
Exactly,
Like,
exactly,
and then she'd like go,
exactly.
"Oh," and she'd walk away like, "Oh, I'm so done with you." She'd be like,
Exactly, exactly. Bless their little
"Yeah."
individual personalities.
Exactly, yeah. So out of all this, what do you think was the most helpful thing that you learned?
Yeah. Um, there are a number of things in different areas. I kind of don't want to give away. There's an arc in the book. There's an emotional arc. I kind of don't want to give away
Okay.
the total arc,
Well,
but
right, of
I will
course.
say that I did come to a place where I realized that there were other things beneath the fear for me. And this I notice this with clients that I work with too,
Mhm.
that oftentimes this might sound strange, but for most of us, there are feelings that we're better at, that are easier to access, and other feelings that are not so easy for us to access.
Mhm.
And I think it goes, individual by individual, what those are. And so I realized what, in a way, it's been easier in my life to access fear than some of the other feelings underneath that.
Okay.
And in this exploration, it helped me understand some of what was underneath my fear. So that was really, really helpful. And again, um, having this sense that yes, my life in this one form will be over pretty soon. um, a feeling of just kind of getting connected to the web of the universe was quite comforting. I mean, I can't get myself to believe that there's going to be any, you know, Lizness, of my individual consciousness left. I know some people believe that there will be.
Mhm.
I can't get myself to believe that. I wish I could, but it's still a sense of, it's kind of like, the physics theory where you can't destroy matter. It only changes shape. It only changes form. You can't destroy it. So
Mhm.
yes, my body in this form will no longer be here,
Mhm.
but it will disperse into some other form. The pieces of me, the molecules of me will go into some other form or other.
No, I can understand that. I have a really good friend, and we joke all the time. He'll be like, I'm like, "All right, well, I'll talk to you later," and we always joke like he goes, "Unless the Lord needs me on another plane," he always says.
Exactly,
So,
exactly, exactly,
and I'm like, "I
exactly.
understand."
Exactly,
you know.
exactly. That reminds me too, Lisa, that I think another thing that came out of doing all this research is this. It's such common wisdom, but all we have is right now.
Mhm.
We don't know what tomorrow will bring. I could get hit by a bus when I take my dog out for a walk this afternoon, and we just don't know. And so um, it's kind of like, yeah, unless I meet you in another plane, or let me just be here now because this is what we've got. And that was really an important. All this look into death was a very stark reminder to be here now. Just be here now. Embrace the day. Embrace what I have.
And I always say the one thing that you can learn from people who have dementia is that they are in that now. That's all they know.
Totally,
And
totally.
you do see it differently because you're like, because 2 seconds from now, they'll be talking about something else, and so they force you to be in the now if you enter their world.
I think that's absolutely right. It's one of the, I believe we can learn something, from anybody
Mhm.
almost in any circumstance. And that's a beautiful thing to learn. And I don't know, I know a lot of people that have a loved one has dementia. It's a challenge, like, you just asked me that 5 minutes ago, or I just
Right.
told you that, instead of like
And
just honoring.
and it takes a long time to get to that point because you're
Yep.
trying to understand it. It really does. That's why I tell everybody, if you can get there and enter their world, it just makes your stress goes way down. You know, it,
Totally.
it really does with it. And then even like you said, like my dad, he actually talk about it happened. Like he's been in the hospital now almost the entire summer. Uh,
Oh my gosh.
and he's not going to be able to go back to live by himself, so like this, what
Oh,
I always said, well, this was not on our bingo card for right now. So like
no, my
you
gosh.
so you just don't
Oh,
know. with things and learning. And I think by learning to kind of be in that moment with my mom, it's kind of helping me deal with a lot of the things for him. Like
Yeah.
even the point of like, okay, I know he has to go into assisted living. He can't live by himself. And I had to go look at all the places, but I was like,
Mm.
it's your decision. Like I kind of knew where I wanted him to go, but I was like, this is your decision. I'm not the one that has to live there, you know.
Good for you. Good for you. Is he fighting having to go into assisted living? Is he resisting
Um,
that?
no, he kind of knows, but it's still hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard decision. His whole life is,
Oh,
changing and things like that, and it is hard. And so that's why I've been trying to approach it, learning with my mom to be like, okay, and like telling them, you know what, if you can't decide what you want with certain things, we'll get a storage unit. And I don't want you to
yeah.
feel like, oh, your whole life has to get pushed away, because I know that would make
Yeah.
me feel really, you know it's a lot, and he's going to be 80 next month. So
Mm.
I know he's been thinking a lot about, like you said, death and all
Yes.
that. Even though I know he says he wants to live to 100, it makes you just really start, thinking about that. So you obviously you've worked with clients that have this fear of mortality. Like how do you work with them? How do you approach that?
Yeah. Um, my I'm always surprised when I hear people say, "Well, I'm not afraid of dying." And
Mhm.
I want to put to the side people who are like maybe have a very painful, debilitating illness.
Mhm.
I can see why death might feel like a relief in that case, or somebody that's been severely depressed their whole life. I'm going to put that to the side.
Okay.
For the rest of us who are not in those categories that say, I'm not afraid of dying, frankly, Lisa, what goes on for me is that I think, well, that's just denial.
Well,
That's
yeah.
just denial because
Yeah.
it's just how can we contend with this notion of, well, I'm here one day and the next day I'm just not here. I'm just gone. I'm
Mhm.
just, that's just to me a kind of patently terrifying notion. I just, you know, so I think, um, well, to me, we are our best selves if we can accept our whole range of feelings, and that includes fear. But if there are some feelings we're not willing to accept or we're not willing to admit to, I think that creates a kind of unease in us that is difficult to contend with. It's just kind of, oh, feelings want to be felt, they want to be expressed. That's the job of a feeling. It wants to be expressed. So if we're not letting ourselves express a feeling, I think it creates a kind of uneasiness. So my job, and this is not just in fear of mortality, but in all sorts of different kinds of feelings with clients, is to help create a safe space where somebody can gently, safely access their whole range of feelings and express. And talking with somebody who you feel safe with is one of the main ways of expressing a feeling, right? Instead of just holding it in and or having it just kind of bounce around in the container of your head,
Mhm.
you know. So yes, I've had plenty of clients who express that fear, and I my first thing to do is to normalize that. It's like, of course you're afraid, of course you are, and let's examine what are the things you're afraid of, or is there anything that you can do to calm yourself? Are there any action steps you can take? Like, um, I it's been very important to me to sort of get my affairs in order
Mhm.
before I need to, and that has decreased my fear. I have a list of all the things my kids need to know about.
Mhm.
After I die, I've got the list of all the telephone numbers and all the papers where all the papers are. I'm trying to clean out stuff I don't need so they don't have a big giant mess to deal with. And that makes me feel less afraid of what I'm going to leave for them to deal with. So that's one small aspect of fear that I can deal with.
Mhm. And I would agree with that, you know, uh, to get your affairs in order, which is it's a hard thing to really think when you have to start really thinking about, okay, who do I want to take care of this? Who do I trust with this? Well, who do I want to have this or that, with it? But it does make life a lot easier for
It
people
does.
when it
It
is in
does.
order. And as you were talking about your feelings, it was a hard lesson for me to understand and learn that, feelings are not right or wrong. They just are.
Exactly. It's almost like saying, I'm wrong if I feel cold in 20 degrees. I mean, that just is.
Right.
It's a feeling. It just is. Like you say, it's not right or wrong. It's just a feeling.
And if you don't deal with the feeling, your body will at some point make you deal with the feeling.
You're not kidding, it will. And, I always say we get two choices. We can deal with them directly or indirectly. Those are the two choices.
And like I always say that I'm the type of person, I'm like, oh, an emergency, I'm fine, I'm calm, I'm like, okay, I gotta do this, this, and this. But then like the TV doesn't work and I like fall apart, because
Exactly.
I'm like,
I've held it together too long.
right.
Now
And
I'm
then
going to
I'm
fall
just,
apart.
yeah, I'm like, don't mess with the TV. I'm just like, you know, but yeah, and a lot of people, they are uncomfortable. They don't want to hear about, hey, this is where you need to know. This is where the papers are. This is I don't want to talk
Mhm.
about it. I don't want to talk about it. But I think it helps ease both people. The person who's telling you this eases their fear, but then also you need to know that. And again, sometimes somebody is sick and you have time, but then sometimes it's sudden and you don't know.
Exactly.
And then what do you
Exactly.
do?
Exactly. Exactly.
It, and it's
Exactly. And I
so
did
hard.
there's a long chapter in my book about this might sound kind of grim for people, but the whole thing about what do I want to do with my body after I die?
Mhm.
And that was a long exploration for me. And I did feel like I didn't want to burden my children with that decision. I felt like it would help ease my mind to make that decision for myself, and communicate it with them, and to communicate it to them so that that's something I could kind of tick off the list.
And it is important because my well, I've told this story before, but at first when I was growing up, my mom used to say, it'd be invitation only to her wake because if you didn't talk to her and you didn't like her, don't be showing up to her wake. And then she would say, don't you dare have anybody looking at me, you know. And then her and my dad then both decided that they want to be cremated because my mom was like, don't be spending all that money on a. And then she was like, you do whatever you want with the ashes. If you find somewhere peaceful, that's fine. But that made me feel better. My dad, he's a veteran, so he
Mhm.
wants to be cremated, but he wants, his ashes there's a veteran cemetery near the house, and that's what he wants. And he wants the full military. And I was like, okay. But it's like, that's what and it's important to know people's wishes because it makes it a lot easier when you're going through it. You have a like a guiding way to go, okay, this is what they wanted.
I think so too. I think so too. And I think it's great that your parents communicated that to you because, again, it's so much stress, I think, on kids to try to, would you want this? Would you
Mm-hmm.
want that? I mean, and then maybe the kids will argue with each other or debate with
Right.
each other, so it's just, I think it's a real gift you can give your kids to make that decision yourself and communicate that to them.
And for me personally, I found peace because I knew I was doing what my mom wanted.
Exactly.
And I was like, okay, I'm honoring her wishes. She even laid it out. These are the songs I want played.
Oh, I love that. I love
Oh yeah,
that. I
and
love
that she did
that.
that long before she was sick. She's like, you need to know this, and I was like, okay, but my mom had had a lot of death in her life,
Mm,
so I think she felt, I don't want to say close to death, but she wasn't afraid of it. And so,
bless her heart.
so she talked about it all the time, in the
Mm,
sense of this is what I want, this is what I don't want, that types of things.
mm,
And I know a lot of people they don't want to talk about that. They're like, oh no, I don't
mhm.
want to know. But when it happens, it's so overwhelming with it.
It's almost like I don't want to talk about it equals like it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
But that's not true.
Right. Unfortunately, it's going to happen to all of us. Yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am, it is.
Yeah. So, what do you want people to take away from reading your book?
Yeah. Well, again, the main thing is be brave, be brave. um, explore, think about this, think about what you want, take a look at what you're afraid of. Is there anything you can do to help you along this way? Are there people you can talk to? Um, and uh, yeah, I think if you have children, I do think it's a blessing to get your get your life, get your situation in order, because as you said, we never know how long we have. We just do not know how long we have.
And when you were going through the whole all your breast cancer, what was how do I wanna phrase this? So, what did you find comforting for like, what did was there certain things that people did or said that, like, really helped you?
um, well, my kids were great.
Mhm,
They came to doctor's appointments with me, and after my surgery, they were there. And all that. I don't. I was a big baby, Lisa. I was a big baby, and I wish I had more grace about it. I mean, I'm trying to give myself,
mhm,
I'm not trying to be too hard on myself, because it was a turning point for me on this journey,
mhm,
and I'm glad that I've kind of gone down this road of finding more peace. Um, they were very, very helpful, and I had wonderful doctors, and they were very reassuring and helpful, and I'm fine. So I got, I'm lucky.
right.
I'm lucky because it wasn't. It could have been a lot worse, and it wasn't. Um, So I think the main thing is it was a big learning experience for me. It
Mhm.
was a giant learning experience for me, for which I am grateful.
Was there anything that people did that you would advise people, like, not to do or say? Because
Um,
I know
y-
people don't
y-
always know what to say or do when someone's sick.
yeah, this is kind of going to be an obvious thing, but don't tell me horror stories. Don't like there were a couple of people that would tell me horror stories, like, why are you doing this?
Right.
Stop. Like, what are you thinking telling me these? I mean, it seems like such an obvious thing, but
Right.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Do not do that. And the other thing is, don't minimize, oh, you're going to be, everything's fine, and you
Mhm.
shouldn't be afraid, and don't minimize. Don't discount. um, you can have empathy, and you can encourage without minimizing or discounting what somebody's feeling.
And I've learned and I try to do this, I probably don't always succeed, but sometimes people, eh, they just need to vent or they just need to know you're there listening, you know?
Totally,
Eh
totally,
eh
totally,
yeah, like, they
totally,
they don't wanna fix. They just want you to
totally,
listen?
totally, totally. I think this is sort of a general principle, but I think the simple question of, what would you like now? Would you like advice, or would you just like to be heard?
Mhm.
If you're confused about what somebody wants, ask what they want. Or if you're confused about what they need, ask. This kind of like jumping in with advice is often not helpful.
Yeah, and sometimes I kinda learned with my mom, all she ever wanted was peace, 'cause
Yeah,
she had a lotta chaos and that in her life, and so I was like, "Well, that's all I can give her," 'cause
yeah.
with dementia, there's nothing I can do, so at least I could give her peace. Uh,
It's wonderful. It's
e
wonderful that that you came to that and you understood that. That's a beautiful thing, Lisa.
'Cause it's like, you feel so helpless with it,
Yes, you do.
'cause
Yes, you
there's
do.
nothing,
That's right.
so I was like, "Okay, well, I could at least try to give her that, at the
Yeah,
very least, with it."
yeah,
So
yeah,
so do you have advice for anyone who harbors some of the same fears you did about mortality?
yeah, yeah. Um, again, I think, be brave. Find safe ways that you can explore this subject. It's we're all going to die,
Mhm.
so not thinking about it doesn't change that fact. And be here now. So seize the day. This is what we have. So try to be the person you want to be. Try to live the life you want to live in the here and now, and be brave and look at the things that frighten you.
Which is scary, but and you can do it little by little. You don't have to do it all at
Yeah,
once.
totally. Oh my gosh, totally. Safely and gently. Safely and gently. And it took me like 3 years to write this book. So I had 3 years of safe gently. I wasn't like all of it in one time,
Right.
so just a little bit at a time. And it wears off the sharp edges, when you can do something a little bit at a time.
Well, yeah, and even, if you're the caregiver side of things, to try to do it a little bit at a time, because that's
Hmm.
overwhelming too when you're trying to
Exactly.
deal with everything with that. So,
Exactly.
where can we purchase your book? The name of the book is "You're Going to Die, but Not Me."
Right. And I chose that title because I'm hoping that people understand that there's a lot of humor in this book. There's a
Hmm.
lot of humor. So that's a kind of like the whole a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. I think, having some humor in this makes some of the topics much easier to absorb. So you can buy it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble online, or This Is the Book. Um, um, I have a website and a Substack, and if anybody wants to be in touch, I love connecting with people. So
And your website is lizscottwriter.com. Is that correct?
it is exactly, and that's my Substack too, lizscottwriter.substack.com.
And
So
you have
yeah,
several other books on there as well, too.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I say, just if anybody just wants to say hi and connect, that's no, you don't need to buy a book, but just really seriously, I love connecting with people. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, this has been a pleasure, and we will make sure that we put all of your information on there as well. So, and I agree with you. Sometimes you have to laugh at all this stuff because otherwise, you're either going to laugh or cry, and maybe you do both. You know?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it. It was lovely talking to you.
Well, thank you for joining us here. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this and check out the book as well. So, hopefully, you enjoyed your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, or a glass of wine. Make sure you check us out on our website and our YouTube channel and join us for another edition of Patty's Place.